I can still clearly recall the surprise meeting I had with my spouse at a friend's baby shower. Jessica seemed to be uninformed about our marriage status. I was jealous of Kyle and Jessica's seeming happiness when it was revealed that they were parents to a kid together. As the lone survivor of our close-knit group consisting of Jessica, Kyle, and me, I wished them eternal bliss. Kyle acknowledged her with an uncomfortable smile. But Jessica answered with a bright smile. But I knew deep down that Kyle wasn't always that kind of person. That he could be callous. Even insensitive. About being pregnant. It was inexcusable that he would violate our dearest buddy by becoming unfaithful. Ashley, a beautician in a little town in the region, was determined to do something and told Kyle there would be repercussions. My origins are in this small city where I was born and reared. It's not as glamorous as the city center, but it still provides a nice lifestyle in a supportive neighborhood. I went to high school with Kyle, who was dubbed the perfect couple. I was the one who always knew where Kyle was. The one who was sometimes joked about as the perfect future bride. Jessica, the third person in our trio, was engrossed in UK music and radio shows on her earbuds. With her sights set on travel, she studied overseas for university, excelling academically. Even though we continued to correspond via email after graduation, our relationship waned. My path of pursuing vocational training in beautician skills after graduation was in line with my family's business ownership of a beauty parlor. Upon joining my family's salon, Kyle pursued studies at a local university before eventually entering the family business, which specialized in selling beauty products such as shampoo. The intertwining of our family businesses fueled speculation about our relationship. Kyle, reserved and taciturn, stood in stark contrast to my outgoing nature. Despite our differences, our relationship from high school naturally evolved into marriage. Sans a formal proposal. Together, we purchased a spacious city house and embarked on our new life. Excitement filled me when I discovered my pregnancy. Eagerly, I shared the news with Kyle, expecting his joyous reaction. However, his response was lackluster. His indifference stung when he nonchalantly inquired about the due date and birth stories. His attention divided by his phone. Disappointment lingered when I faced the challenges of my first pregnancy. Balancing full-time work with sudden health issues proved daunting. Reluctantly, I took maternity leave earlier than planned to prioritize my well-being. Yet, Kyle's response was unsympathetic. He cited standard maternity leave policies and questioned the timing of my departure, displaying a lack of understanding for my physical strain. His callous remarks continued, dismissing pregnancy as not an ailment but a state not to be indulged. He admonished me for potential laziness, warning of dire consequences if I failed to meet his standards. Such harsh words, even about our unborn child's potential, left me unsettled. His demands for perfection extended to household chores, exacerbating my struggle to balance responsibilities. As my pregnancy progressed, my dietary options became increasingly limited. I pleaded with Kyle to take on some responsibility for meal preparation, but he remained dependent on me for all household chores. Growing up in a family business environment, I was accustomed to shouldering domestic duties from a young age. In contrast, Kyle, raised by a mother devoted to homemaking, seemed utterly clueless about household tasks. The notion that men in our family don't do housework, a mantra echoed by my mother-in-law, only added to my frustration. While I respected my mother-in-law's commitment to maintaining the home, it left Kyle ill-prepared for domestic life. This lack of shared responsibility weighed heavily on me. Yet broaching the topic with Kyle proved challenging. Amidst my internal struggle, the urgency of pregnancy-related bathroom trips frequently interrupted our discussions. Despite attempts to explain, Kyle's responses were dismissive and belittling. Each bathroom break elicited a litany of complaints from Kyle, who seemed to view my needs as inconveniences. His habit of treating me like an elderly person, particularly during these moments, heightened my discomfort. Desperate to escape his condescending remarks, I rushed to the bathroom, barely avoiding an embarrassing situation. From the other room, Kyle's mocking commentary only added to my frustration. Reflecting on our early days of marriage, I was initially drawn to Kyle's composed demeanor. However, as my pregnancy progressed, his demeanor shifted, revealing a lack of empathy and understanding. Every time Kyle tries to help me, it feels like it goes wrong. Rather than being supportive, he makes comparisons between me and different cases he has read about online. Take a look at how flawless this celebrity looked and how quickly she went back to work after giving baby. You'll follow suit. Correct? He queries. I can't be compared so easily to such extraordinary people. I reply, frustrated. We're just trying to get by as humans. Still, Kyle continues to have unrealistic expectations because he believes questionable material he finds online. Kyle's attendance at home decreases as my pregnancy goes on. He blames this on our growing workload. But it's obvious that our heated fights also have an impact. Our relationship is further strained by his recent practice of going out on weekends and nighttime excursions while claiming to be employed. This conduct contrasts sharply with the engaged fathers that are praised in modern discourse. When Kyle gets home late one evening, I confront him about his recent absences. You've been busy with work recently, haven't you? I ask. Angry, Kyle snaps back. I'm attempting to draw a new business. It is not relevant to you. He brushes off my questions regarding his alcohol use as part of his work when I press him further. And his sarcastic tone reverberates through the walls. I attempt to reason with him, but all I get in return is blame and sarcasm. And the odor of alcohol remains. I work hard every day. And all you do is lay around at home, he says. His comments have crushed me, and I can barely contain my emotions. I step back, feeling the weight of his disappointment and the unreasonable expectations he had of me, and put his bag back on the shelf, as a tiny object tumbled to the ground with a subtle clatter. I recognized it as a pair of wireless earbuds. Retrieving them casually, I examined the petite, earring-like buds, adorned in an appealing shade of pink that seemed tailored for feminine tastes. The admonition not to tamper with the bag without permission was clear, a boundary crossed into privacy infringement. Though it wasn't out of character for me, it struck me as unusual seeing Kyle with earbuds, prompting the suggestion of returning them if they belonged to someone else. Yet, Kyle's vehement response surpassed reason, culminating in a jarring kick to my stomach. A reaction disproportionate to a mere observation. Confused and reeling from the unexpected assault, I found myself at a loss for comprehension when Kyle retreated to his room, leaving me stunned and replaying the bewildering events in my mind. The following day, out of caution, I sought medical attention for my bruised abdomen, attributing the injury to a domestic mishap rather than revealing the truth about Kyle's aggression. Thankfully, the baby remained unharmed, though my own physical state bore evidence of the altercation. Amidst the turmoil, a glimmer of positivity emerged with the news of my dear friend Jessica's childbirth. Despite hearing she had pursued studies abroad and secured employment there, her return to the U.S. came as a surprise. While I longed to celebrate her joyous occasion with Kyle by my side, his absence on a business trip left me to extend my congratulations alone. Entering Jessica's sunlit hospital room, I found her reclined on the bed, exuding relief and joy. Despite the solitary nature of my visit, her welcoming smile eased the weight of recent events, offering a moment of solace amidst the chaos. A long time has passed. Thank you so much for the baby, I said to Jessica. I'm grateful. About a year ago, I did in fact return to the U.S., but I was unable to get in touch with you. I apologize, Jessica replied earnestly, her tone more sophisticated and adult than it had been when she was a student. I'm just relieved the baby arrived safely, she said. The same earbuds I had found in Kyle's belongings were lying next to her pillow when I looked at them. Jessica seems to be aware of my curiosity. These. My favorites are those. My boyfriend found one for me after I had lost mine. Are you serious? How does your spouse behave? I asked. But before Jessica could answer, there was a sudden knock. I was stunned when Kyle unexpectedly came into the room. Are you surprised? It's been a while, Kyle said breezily when he greeted us, not seeming to know that we were married. I started to say, it's a reunion of our old trio, but Jessica's naive smile cut me off. Hi there. Thanks for stopping by. Long while not seen. With a friendly greeting, Jessica showed Kyle that she was unaware of our relationship, creating an odd vibe in the room. With a smooth insertion, Kyle said, we're planning to get married, sidestepping the topic of our complex situation. But paperwork's been keeping us busy. I see. Actually, as you can see, I'm also pregnant, I admitted, unable to resist the need to tell everyone. I decided to keep my cool and concentrate on defending both myself and my unborn kid after being reminded of the life that was developing inside of me. I bemoaned, trying not to show my irritation. I really wanted to bring him today, but I couldn't. That is regrettable. I couldn't wait to meet Ashley's spouse, Jessica said, not realizing how ironic her words were. However, having a maid as understanding as yours is invaluable. Mine rarely helps out, she said, glaring discreetly at Kyle, who avoided eye contact with her. You two seem so happy together, Jessica said with a beaming smile. I thought to myself, I'm the only one left out of our close-knit trio. When I nodded to Jessica and Kyle, our shyness differing slightly, Jessica said, oh, this is for the baby shower. Deflecting the conversation's attention to a happier event and momentarily calming the atmosphere. I got some bibs for the baby because I've heard they're usually useful. They're so cute. They even have matching ones. Jessica said. Thank you. Changing the subject to something happier. You must be looking forward to your baby too. Ashley. She stated. Yes. Without a doubt. We should all go out together once I have a healthy baby. I said with enthusiasm. However, Kyle seemed to take offense at the word all, which I decided to brush off and keep a happy smile on my face. Oh. Speaking of which, can we take a photo? Holding the infant. Jessica volunteered excitedly when Kyle stood next to her. Feeling the weight of my emotions crushing down on me, I contrived a smile and excused myself from the hospital room, suppressing my inner agony. Once outdoors, my shoulders shook with repressed emotion and my breathing became labored. I could hear Kyle's quiet replies and Jessica's enthusiastic discussion through the closed door. I didn't hesitate to act as I hurried home. I took out my phone and dialed a real estate broker. Hey. I know this seems abrupt, but I'd like to sell my house. Can we begin working on the paperwork immediately? I asked for. Using the agent's contacts, I quickly and effectively set up the ad and found a moving company. I then got in touch with Kyle's parents. Mom. I'm sending some of Kyle's possessions your way because of an urgent circumstance. Please don't be scared. It might be a lot. I said. I was determined to remove all memory of our shared life in that house. I considered shipping Kyle's stuff straight to his parents' place since I knew he would be gone on a business trip until the next day. But it went against my wish to get rid of mementos of our shared history, wanting to spare my mother-in-law from sudden shock. I made sure to inform her of the arrangements I'd made. Shortly after finalizing everything, Kyle's incessant calls flooded in. Despite his persistent attempts to reach me, I chose to ignore them, opting instead to sip water calmly. His subsequent message urging a private conversation between us sparked little interest, when I struggled to fathom what discussion could possibly resolve our current turmoil. Moreover, the distrust seeded by his earlier aggression had now flourished into a deep-rooted skepticism, rendering his voice unwelcome to my ears. I did not take long to start packing when I got home. I hurried into Kyle's room and started packing his belongings in boxes. Thank goodness. Since this is the off-season, I was able to arrange for a thorough plan that included help with packing and guaranteed a seamless move. After sorting through Kyle's stuff, there was just one thing left to do: make plans for my own move. My parents came right away when I called to offer assistance, which made the relocation easier to finish. In the middle of the chaos, I was surprised to find an incomplete divorce form in Kyle's room. It became clear that Kyle was planning to leave our marriage in favor of Jessica. Taking advantage of the chance, I quickly filled out the remaining portions of the form and saved it for later use. When I pondered the implications of Kyle's betrayal, a call from my mother-in-law interrupted my thoughts. Surprised by the volume of belongings arriving, she sought clarification on the situation. Summoning courage, I disclosed Kyle's infidelity, recounting his affair with Jessica from high school and the child they shared. With a heavy heart, I shared photographic evidence of Kyle's deception, a snapshot capturing Jessica cradling the baby, with Kyle standing beside them. Though disbelief lingered, the truth stood undeniable. In light of recent revelations, I resolved to seek refuge at my parents' home, severing ties with Kyle. despite my mother-in-law's efforts to reach him. His absence only confirmed the irreversible rift in our relationship. Confronted with my firm stance, she appeared to grasp the gravity of the situation, lending credence to my decision to forge a new path forward. I packed up my things and headed back to my childhood house, comforted by the memory of my old chamber. But the peace was broken early the following morning when I received a message from Kyle telling me that the house was empty and that the "for sale" sign was clearly visible. I realized that I was no longer the owner of my beloved home. Kyle wrote that he would change the locks and move my stuff to my parents' house so that my return would be pointless. I reluctantly agreed to meet at his parents' house later that day, feeling frustrated and confused. Kyle, his parents, my own parents, and I all showed up for the meeting. My mother-in-law, who is normally quite calm, looked somewhat upset when she started the conversation. She confronted Kyle about his supposed romance with acquaintance Jessica, and accusations began to fly. Kyle angrily refuted the charge, claiming that their romance had just lately begun to take off. His excuses did not calm my mother-in-law down. Instead, she became enraged and attacked Kyle, disclosing that I was expecting his kid. It was shocking to see the usually composed matriarch looking like this. They got into a violent argument when Kyle, who didn't seem to be affected by the blow, questioned her outburst. I stepped in and asked him to explain why he had started dating Jessica. I was hurt and dumbfounded by his explanation, which mentioned her appeal and my long-standing admiration for her from high school. His admission of his feelings for Jessica threw me into a tornado of emotions and brought up memories of our previous relationship. I realized that my mother-in-law had no animosity toward me. Thus there was nothing standing in the way of Kyle and me being together. But Kyle had kept our marriage a secret from Jessica and had even considered divorcing her when she got pregnant. By coincidence, I also found out I was pregnant at the same time. Kyle didn't have the strength to dissolve our union or the resolve to make a new commitment. Therefore, things remained as they were. His conceit disgusted me. Was he not embarrassed to be juggling two women so different from each other? My dissatisfaction with my life with Ashley was brought to light when I ran upon Jessica again. I made the decision to wed Jessica and become a more responsible man. However, my mother-in-law's rage was uncontrollable. She broke all relationships, disowning Kyle as her son and firing him from our family company. Yet, I couldn't help but wonder, could Kyle adapt to a different career path? His rebuttal only fueled my doubts. He attributed his past successes solely to the influence of Ashley's beauty salon, claiming it played a pivotal role in promoting our products. My parents, silent witnesses until then, regretfully announced their decision to discontinue business relations with Kyle's company. Despite the fallout, Kyle remained undeterred, expressing confidence in his ability to start afresh. His optimism stemmed from his youth and the prospect of Jessica returning to work after giving birth. However, my muttered reassurances were abruptly interrupted by Jessica's voice booming over the speaker. She expressed incredulity and outrage upon discovering Kyle's marital status, exclaiming that she would never have pursued him had she known he was already married to Ashley. I discovered that I was also betraying Ashley. It is actually astounding how unwise you have been in this talk. You are not a very good businessperson. What brings Jessica here? I contacted Ashley and asked her to participate in the conversation. I'm appreciative she paid attention. I don't want to see you in the future. Please hold on to me. Kyle begged. Why should I stay with someone as despicable as you? Jessica shot back. I'll raise the baby on my own. But I'll be expecting child support. After appearing to realize that trying to persuade Jessica would be fruitless, Kyle turned to face me, his face still streaked with dried blood, and begged for a reunion. Ashley. I was mistaken. Let's raise our child together and forget everything else. I won't stay in a marriage with a person like that. I can't just ignore the terrible things you've done. I answered, recalling how surprised I had been to find Kyle in Jessica's hospital room. Kyle gave me a desperate look as his miserable expression made me feel something. But I gently shook my head. You returning to me merely because things didn't work out with Jessica is too convenient. However, taking care of the infant alone will provide difficulties. Won't it? A father like you would be more of a hindrance than an aid in my line of work. I wouldn't be stupid enough to hang on to a worthless man. I showed Kyle the divorce papers I had discovered in his drawer after we had previously discussed everything with my understanding parents, who knew a respectable legal company and had contacts through their business. I've prepared the divorce paperwork. As you can see, the only matters remaining are the child support and property split agreements. Wait. I have to pay Jessica and now you too. Kyle cried out. I mean, I am still your wife. Right. However, don't believe that you can ignore Jessica either. We are prepared with attorneys, I said, overwhelmed by the circumstances. Kyle hid his face in his hands. Abdominal pain that I was not familiar with abruptly struck. Ow. It hurts. I gasped as I became aware that labor was about to start. Suddenly the meeting was over, and my parents were driving me to the hospital. I was so exhausted from the emotional upheaval of the meeting and the delivery that I fell into bed and slept soundly, hardly waking up when the nurses woke me up. When my mother, a private beautician, got back to my parents' house with my baby, she quietly told her clientele, mostly housewives, about Kyle's behavior. Her message spread fast around the community with just a few words. In the meantime, undervaluing the value of personal relationships and depending only on the internet, Kyle tried to start an online sales business. But his abilities were little compared to the power of word of mouth. Due to the reports, he was unable to obtain bank financing, which finally caused his company endeavor to fail. Jessica's admission contributed to Kyle's demise. She had captured every word we said on the video call, revealing Kyle's arrogant nature. She condensed the footage into a brief film and shared it with our other high school students. As a result, Kyle lost every friend he had and any hope of assistance. After being evicted from his parents' house, he had little choice but to live at an internet cafe and spend all of his savings trying to find a new place to live and work. After struggling as a jobless guy without a definite address, Kyle moved to a far-off place. He managed to obtain day labor jobs, but the obstacles were constant. I threatened to sue him for attacking me when I was pregnant if he didn't pay the child support. Equipped with images of my wounds and medical documents, I started the divorce process and became a single mother nearly at the same time that I gave birth. But I wasn't by myself. I took a bigger apartment and moved in with Jessica. Together, Jessica, myself, and our infants set off on a brand new adventure. With Kyle out of the picture, Jessica and I, who were previously closest friends, became even closer. The kids connected like siblings. By helping one another with childcare, we were able to successfully manage our personal and professional lives. What will we do next? We intend to introduce ourselves to the kids at the park when they are a little older. We enjoy the comforts of our peaceful existence together for the time being. After watching the first story above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, let's watch another similar story. My husband's piercing gaze meets mine as he utters, "You're simply incapable of thriving without my support." He declares that my time is up, insinuating that I owe him for my very existence. My name is Lauren, aged 36, sharing a suburban apartment with my spouse, Matt. We first crossed paths in high school and reconnected at a reunion 9 years ago. Our rapport blossomed, leading to a romantic involvement. And 3 years later, we exchanged vows. Matt commutes to a downtown company while I transitioned from a structured job in web design to freelance work from home last year. Despite 6 years of marriage, our household remains childless due to my infertility. A revelation that initially stunned us both. However, with time, we reconciled with this reality, finding solace in each other's companionship. Yet, Matt's demeanor has shifted dramatically in the past year. Increasingly, he spends time at his parents' residence, returning home with complaints about their incessant prodding for grandchildren. His monthly pilgrimages to their distant abode seem contradictory, considering his aversion to their badgering. When I suggest he lessen these visits to shield himself from undue stress, he lashes out, accusing me of callousness and implying that I expect him to forsake his parents. It's a delicate situation, compounded by his disappointment over our childlessness. Nevertheless, I can't help but feel perplexed by his insistence on enduring discomfort for the sake of familial obligations, especially when it comes at the cost of our own happiness. I never uttered such hurtful words. Yet Matt consistently paints me as the villain, branding me heartless, doubting his narrative. I discreetly consulted my in-laws. To my relief, they dismissed any notion of expectation for grandchildren from us, expressing genuine support and understanding when I disclosed my infertility 4 years prior. Their reassurance left me wary of Matt's sudden fixation on offspring and his harsh treatment towards me. Then, a message from my longtime friend Samantha revived my spirits. Samantha, Matt's childhood companion and my closest confidant, had always stood by me since Matt and I began dating. Eagerly, I accepted her invitation to catch up, scheduling a meeting at our customary cafe. When I entered the cafe, Samantha greeted me warmly. Our reunion sparked a flurry of questions about life, work, and Matt. Amidst our conversation, Samantha humbly reminded me of her suggestion to pursue freelance work from home, a decision that had evidently flourished. Grateful for her guidance, I treated her to a slice of cake. Although her unusual request for a meetup left me curious about her motives, Samantha's expression briefly darkened when I inquired, prompting me to adopt a more attentive stance. Sensing her unease, just as I redirected my focus to her, I heard a familiar voice. Startled to see Matt approaching, usually laid back on weekends, today he appeared in a shirt and jacket, his tone unusually gentle. His presence caught me off guard. This cafe catered predominantly to women, offering sweets that weren't to Matt's taste. Matt's sudden appearance and choice of seating next to Samantha, rather than me, puzzled me. I couldn't comprehend why he'd opt for that spot. When I questioned his abrupt intrusion, urging him to move due to Samantha's discomfort, he remained unfazed, brushing off my concerns as jealousy, which he deemed embarrassing at my age. Attempting to salvage the situation, I confronted him, questioning his motives for being there, a departure from his usual weekend routine. However, my inquiries were met with dismissive remarks about my age, career choices, and our childlessness. Despite previously explaining my transition to freelance work to alleviate household burdens, Matt seemed either oblivious or indifferent. Feeling a mix of astonishment and frustration, I attempted to convey my perspective, only to be met with a blunt refusal to acknowledge my contributions and concerns. When Samantha and I exchanged knowing glances, I couldn't help but feel a pang of disappointment and disbelief at Matt's callous disregard for our relationship and my efforts to sustain our household. I refuted Matt's accusations, asserting my independence and financial stability, only to be met with his dismissal, claiming to see through my supposed deceit. Despite years of living together, he seemed oblivious to the truth. Frustrated by his unfounded accusations, I couldn't comprehend his sudden hostility. As tensions escalated, Samantha bore witness to our altercation, prompting me to apologize for the discomfort caused by our disagreement. Guiding Matt out of the cafe, I urged him to reconsider his behavior, mindful of Samantha's unease. Returning to Samantha, I expressed regret for Matt's behavior, confiding in her about his recent change in demeanor and baseless accusations. To my surprise, Samantha revealed her own troubling experience, confessing tearfully that Matt had been incessantly pursuing her for the past year. Shocked and sympathetic, I comforted Samantha, realizing that Matt's behavior extended beyond our relationship. Samantha divulged that Matt, their longtime neighbor and friend, had been bringing her gifts during his visits to his parents' house, insisting on waiting for her to receive them personally. Samantha's revelation left me reeling, questioning the true nature of Matt's intentions and the extent of his deception. It was a sobering realization, shedding light on the depths of his deceit and manipulation. The behavior of Matt began to change in a manner that was concerning about half a year ago. It was through digital messaging that he initiated the process of proposing dates to Samantha. Samantha, who was visibly upset, revealed these conversations with me. They were loaded with Matt's heartfelt apologies and sorry confessions about his marriage to Lauren, whom he admitted he chose solely for her attractiveness and never thought that she would be infertile. Throughout his communications, Matt stressed his firm belief that Samantha was his true love and that he would soon leave Lauren to marry her. He cited his capacity to provide for her financially as the reason for his decision. While I was reading these uncomfortable texts, I became aware of the extent to which Matt had been dishonest with Samantha as well as with me. Because of this affair, it became clear that his unusual behavior during the course of the previous year was connected to it. In spite of the fact that my feelings for Matt had become more negative and that his behavior toward me had become more hostile, it was clear that his fondness for me had disappeared a long time ago. On the other hand, despite the fact that he had betrayed me, I felt a responsibility to both Samantha and myself to handle these circumstances with respect. If Matt had genuine affections for Samantha, he ought to have been forthright with me about his thoughts and investigated the possibility of getting a divorce before following her interests. The dishonest behavior that Samantha displayed was reprehensible, and it was abundantly evident that she deserved something better. After seeing Samantha's distress and hearing her apologies, I experienced a twinge of compassion and a determination to shield her from any potential harm. It was clear that Samantha was concerned about my bitterness as well as the possibility that Matt would become angry. Recognizing the critical nature of her safety, I suggested that she seek refuge away from the influence that Matt possesses. As a group, we deliberated about the various choices available to her and devised a strategy to guarantee her safety. Despite their initial horror at the news, Samantha's parents remained unwavering in their support for their daughter and their condemnation of Matt's activities. I felt compelled to include Samantha's parents in this situation. Following the disclosure of the truth to Samantha's parents, we confronted Matt's parents with the complete depth of his betrayal. They were shocked, in a manner that was completely understandable. They expressed their sincere regret and offered their assistance to Samantha and her family. I pleaded with them to act as if they were unaware of the situation and to assist in buying Samantha some time when she would be leaving. Every time Matt made an effort to pay a visit to his parents, I came up with excuses to delay him, which made it difficult for him to get in touch with Samantha. When the level of Matt's irritation increased, he started turning his wrath toward me, accusing me of destroying his weekends and failing to live up to my role as a housewife, because I was unwilling to put up with his cruelty any longer. I purposefully disregarded his laundry during the weekdays. As a result, he was left without any clean clothes, and he was forced to struggle with chores that he was not familiar with. Matt erupted in a fit of wrath just as Samantha's escape plot was about to be executed, and he hurled insults and a divorce petition at me. I made the most of the chance and signed the documents as quickly when I could before gathering my items and leaving the house without any hesitation. I made arrangements for temporary housing at the residence of Matt's parents in order to provide myself with a safe haven until I could find a place of my own. Matt, who was under the impression that he had successfully extricated himself from me, appeared relieved and hurried to Samantha's house, only to discover that it was empty. While this was going on, I took some deliberate actions to make sure that Matt's reputation suffered among our contemporaries, so that no one would come to his aid. After a number of months had passed, beginning with my divorce from Matt and continuing with my relocation, which was paid for by my money, he made an attempt to get in touch with me, only to find out that I had blocked him in advance. It was finally possible for me to move forward without the specter of Matt's betrayal hanging over my head, since Samantha was safe and my own destiny was under control. Matt's surprise message arrived just as I was coming to the realization that I had neglected to block him. He was attempting to entice me back by making false promises and apologizing. Despite this, I reacted in a composed manner, dismissing his attempts with a hint of sarcasm throughout. In a teasing manner, I inquired about his purported homeless life, gradually bringing to his attention the inevitable outcomes that would result from his conduct. I had built a good life for myself in a beautiful condo in the Bay Area, complete with all the conveniences that one could possibly want. But he was unaware of this fact. In spite of the fact that we were divorced, Matt had never brought up the subject of asset distribution, possibly because he believed that I had very little to claim. He had no idea that I had been able to afford this newly discovered luxury because I had achieved financial freedom over the course of many years through strategic investments and working from home. By comparing the days of his verbal abuse to the peaceful existence I am currently leading, I made it quite plain that I had no desire to go back to a relationship that was hazardous to my health. I had kept in touch with his parents, who offered troubling tales of the state of his home, which was a reflection of his deteriorating mental state and disrespect for basic cleanliness. Despite the fact that we did not communicate directly with each other, I have maintained contact with them. His attempts to lure me into returning to a role of subservience were unsuccessful, and I responded by reminding him that we were divorced and reiterating my determination to be independent. There was a hint in Matt's surprised response that he had come to the realization that he no longer had any influence over me. This was a knowledge that I found to be both gratifying and empowering. Matt came to the realization that he had been excluded after the call was terminated, and he instantly blocked him. As a result, he turned to begging with his parents for assistance. His desire to restore control was so strong that he came up with a scheme to coerce Lauren into apologizing and granting permission for all of them to reside in the luxurious apartment that I had mentioned before. On the other hand, his parents made the decision to entirely cut off all of their links with him after becoming fully aware of his conduct and the gravity of the situation. In addition to evicting him from their residence, they disowned him, referred to him as a disgrace, and deemed him to be a harmful influence on his sister's family. Matt didn't receive any support from his family, despite the fact that his parents were steadfast in their refusal to change their minds. In his desperation, he turned to our classmates in an attempt to locate Samantha and me, but his efforts were treated with apathy. He found that our classmates were not interested in finding us. When Matt's life continued to slide more into disarray, he became estranged from his contemporaries and was continuously bothered by complaints from his neighbors regarding the odor that emanated from his residence. His once promising career started to fall apart as a result of his negligence and inability to take responsibility, and he became a pariah at his place of employment. Matt's predicament became more and more precarious when he continued to place blame on other people for his misfortunes and refused to admit the involvement of his own actions in his fall from grace. As a result of his untidy appearance and offensive presence, he was turned down by prospective employers, and as a result, he found himself caught in a vicious loop of becoming more and more despondent. In light of the fact that he had previously made fun of the concept of homelessness, many who knew him were aware of the irony of his current circumstance. While sitting on my balcony and taking in the view of the ocean, I reflected on the events that had transpired. I felt a wave of relief rush over me when I realized that Samantha was safe and that Matt's efforts to find us had been unsuccessful. The realization that our friendship had been able to survive the upheaval that was caused by Matt's actions provided me a sense of comfort. In the middle of the turbulent sea that was Matt's fall from grace, I found solace in the consistency of our relationship during the time that we continued to meet at our favorite cafe. After watching the stories above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. If you enjoyed our video, please like, subscribe, and share our channel. That's all about today's stories. See you next time.